Today we're going to be reviewing Sophie and Toffee's brand new Gamer Polyhedral Disilicone mold set, and buckle up because I have a lot of thoughts about this mold set. Quite a few people had reached out to me asking me to try these to know if they should buy them or not. When I bought these dice molds, I got some freebies because I also purchased a mini Disilicone mold and a big chonky D20 mold. I'm not reviewing those in this video, but if you do want to see me review them, just let me know in the comments. You may or may not change your mind after watching this video. Either way, let's go ahead and start looking at the molds themselves. Some of them are these three-part molds, which are designed so that you can easily remove the dice out of them without actually tearing or damaging the silicone in any way. It's a very hard silicone. It's not like hard plastic, but it's definitely harder than normal, and they have designs built in so that you can't accidentally put the lids in the wrong way. So far, so good. I really do like that extra step to make sure you can't mess up the lids, but then they go and do something weird here. Most of the lids are flat with a number on them. These lids for the D10 and the percentile D10 have this insert that goes down into the second part of the mold. Other than that, the bottom half still comes apart just like the other one, though it's at a slightly different angle, but that indentation is weird. It's not weird that it's made that way. I've seen molds made both ways, but it's weird that the set is made up of basically three different types of molds. I've never seen that before. The D4, the D6, and the D8 are all two-part molds, which makes sense. They don't have parts that are necessary to make a three-part mold out of, so that's fine, but again, kind of weird. Then there's also some quality issues with the molds. I had a lot of excess silicone on the second parts of the molds that I had to cut out with an X-Acto knife. Otherwise, there'd be these odd shapes or voids where there should be resin, but there's some excess silicone over them. Even the really thin parts of silicone you can see here on the corners will cause you to have to do extra sanding on your dice or just deform them to where you can't really use them in the first place. The molds themselves are pretty small, including the lids, which is a problem, but I'll explain all that later after we've actually made some dice because things will get a little bit more clear. Speaking of making dice, let's go ahead and mix up some resin. I'm going to be using Envirotex light resin. It's a 1:1 by volume resin. Sophie and Toffee on their website recommend using either a UV resin or an epoxy resin like we're using here. I'm going to mix mine with purple alcohol ink. This is alcohol ink and resin that I normally use, so I can tell you that these aren't going to be the problems in the molds. Otherwise, I would have tried theirs just to see if that made a difference, but I'm trying to eliminate variables here. I'm also going to add some gold liquid glitter, the stuff that we DIY'd in a video a while back. And by the way, if there's any oddly satisfying companies out there looking for some content, take a look at that. I'll go ahead and send you some videos. Put me up on those oddly satisfying compilations. I'm going to be a big jerk and go ahead and mix it up and stop the satisfying spread of the gold, but we have to because once it's mixed, we can start pouring it into the molds and actually testing the molds that we came here to see. As I pour the resin in, luckily these are cap molds, and so it's really easy to just pour the resin in on the top. I do what I normally do with cap molds and overflow it on the top. That way we have a little bit of excess to squeeze out on the sides and ensure that we try and get no gaps or voids. After a few minutes, I go ahead and go over it with a lighter to try and pop any surface bubbles, again trying to prevent any bubbles from getting stuck in the top of these molds. Now all we have to do is flip the lids over and lock them into place. Again, they have nice lids that can't be placed on incorrectly, so that's very helpful. As I put it on the two-part mold here, the resin squeezes out over the edges. You'll notice as I squeeze down on this D12 mold, or one of the three-part molds, some resin does come up out of that lower level because I'm squishing resin down in there. And these where I have the insert on the D10 and D10 percentile, a lot more resin comes out because it's pushing resin up and out of the mold. I'm going to put these dice molds in a pressure pot for 24 hours to hopefully try and get rid of some more air bubbles in the resin, anything to prevent gaps and voids in the molds and give them their best shot. Now, Sophie and Toffee don't say that they use a pressure pot in their how-to video for these molds, but hey, it was nice of them to make a how-to and share their skill in dice making with us. Wait a minute, he just said Skillshare. That means there's an ad coming. No! Thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. If you haven't heard of Skillshare before, they're an online learning community with thousands of classes for creative people or just anybody trying to learn something new, maybe even making a career jump. I got into Skillshare because I'm a serial hobby hopper who likes to watch one video learning how to do one thing and then immediately go to a new video learning something completely new. And Skillshare is filled with tons of people who are amazing at showing off what they are experts in. For instance, this Introduction into 3D Printing by Lauren Slowick is a fantastic way to learn how to take something from pen and paper and 3D print a 3D object just from nothing. It's really awesome, and they even show you ways how to go through shapeways to get it printed if you don't have a 3D printer. Long story short, there are so many different classes and things to learn. Come join me over at Skillshare because the first 1,000 people to use the link in the description below will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Thank you again to Skillshare. Okay, enough with the ad. You probably want to know what I think about these and how the dice turned out. And well, you can see I don't like them. There's a big void in the two-part mold for the D4 here already. Actually, all of the 2-part molds have huge problems with them, and some of the 3-part molds have problems with them as well. Got a void in the D4, got a void in the D6. You can see a lot of air was making its way in through the top, largely because the lids are too small, but I'll get back to that in a minute. Also, because the molds are really hard, it's actually hard to just get the dice out of the molds in the first place. It's really pretty. It turned out looking like dice, but even the tip up there in the corner is broken off because there's excess silicone where it shouldn't be, so it doesn't look like a real good D8. The few bright spots in this set of 7 molds are the D10s. The regular D10 and the percentile D10 both have that insert on the lid that's unlike the rest of the molds. That mold style is generally pretty foolproof and hard for any bubbles to find their way into the molds. So if I was going to tell them to change their molds, I would just say go with more of this same style. It works out really well. It actually creates a really nice flush surface on the top that doesn't take much sanding at all to get a really nice looking dice on. All you got to do is get rid of the flashing, which any 3-part mold is going to have a lot of flashing, which I don't necessarily like, but hey, it'll get you dice every time. These other 3-part molds, though, I had some other issues with. This D12, well, it had issues of bubbles finding their way into the mold through that middle part. You can see where this flashing is here. Bubbles came up through the side and out through the top. That's because the lid is just too light. Normally when I make my dice mold lids, I want them to be 3/4 or a full inch in height. This one is barely over 1/4 an inch, so there's not a lot of weight holding it down and bubbles can find their way in pretty darn easily. Before I show you my least favorite thing about these molds, I do want to also show the Sophie and Toffee website has a how-to for how to make these, and even theirs are absolutely covered with pockmarks and tiny bubbles. I just don't think these are well-designed molds. But the thing that I hate most about these molds is the D20 mold. First of all, the one is off center and the silicone is cut very, very poorly. The numbers are raised too high up in the triangle face, and it is the smallest dice out of the set. Who decided to make the D20 the smallest dice besides the D4? Not only that, there's a raised lip on the one's face, and because you got to do a lot of sanding to get rid of the flashing around the whole die, it's probably going to become misshapen. Trying to sand that one's place even, you're going to make the 7, 19, and 13 numbers really lopsided, and that D20 is not going to come out looking good. And again, it's smaller than the rest of the dice. I just don't understand it. It definitely feels like it was designed by somebody who doesn't actually play tabletop games, because nobody would make that design choice. I think it was mostly to fit the mold size that the rest of them are in, because they're all in very similar sized molds, and a larger D20 just wouldn't work that way. I think you should redesign it if that's the case, but maybe that's just me. The one thing that I would say is the D10s are good molds. If they redesign them all to be like this, I might recommend them, but as is, this is a bad set of molds and I do not recommend it at all for a lot of reasons. Now, in between filming and editing, I did make a few more sets just to test it out, but no, they all turned out pretty much the exact same, so I'm pretty confident in saying this is just how these molds work. At least they're durable. They list the harder silicone as a plus, but I've generally found softer silicone to last longer and be better for longer use with molds. But maybe that's just me. Some people probably like this harder silicone. I just find that it tears. So really, it's another point against them for me. But again, all of this is just my review and my opinion of the product. Let me know if you want me to check out the mini version of the dice or the big chunky D20 as well. I'm happy to look at those if you want me to. At the very least, I hope this helped inform your purchasing decision. Maybe consider subscribing if you might want to see some more videos like this in the future. Like the video if you like it, dislike it if you disliked it. I want to hear that too. Either way, I hope that you have a fantastic day.